Well, let's take it over to baseball, college baseball, and let's show a little love to college softball. Obviously, this pains me to say, but oh man, with a team as good as Oklahoma, it actually makes me pretty proud. Um, I would like to say, and Leighton, you can chime in on this too. I know you follow baseball and softball to some degree, but I think that this past College World Series for softball was so good for the sport. It drawed so much attention, millions and millions of viewers. And I'm not going to say it was all because of one team, because this year was incredible as far as college softball went. There was a lot that went on. But one thing I will tell you is this Oklahoma Sooners team that we had this past year, we may never see a softball team like that ever again in college. As the listeners know, I went over their stats in the last podcast. They're just dominant, man. They're just dominant. They beat Texas in game one, embarrassingly. And then Texas was holding on pretty good in the second game, doing pretty well, had like a 2-1 lead. And then, dude, they did what they do best and just went off and just scored a bunch and was robbing home runs. That home run robbery by Jada Coleman was insane. But I just wanted to give my congrats to the softball team of Oklahoma. What they did was amazing. Also, UNT alumni, Hope, and just doing everything over there. But one player in specific I want to highlight is Jocelyn Allo. Sorry, apologize. But I don't know how familiar y'all are with that name, but you should familiarize yourself with her because she was insane. I saw a stat basically matchup between, this is going to throw you off for a loop, Jocelyn Allo and Barry Bonds. They showed a stat in which I can't remember the exact stat. It was a very, very specific stat. I'd have to look it up. But basically, it was a stat that Barry Bonds had currently held the record for in the MLB. And in college softball, Jocelyn Allo was beating him in this specific record. Cullen, you're the stats man, so if you want to look it up and kind of see what it's all about,
I got something in terms of Allo that I pulled up. She broke the record for RBIs and home runs at a single women's College World Series. Finished the year with a .515 batting average. Generally in sports,
that's insane.
If you do something and you have better odds of doing that one thing than I have of guessing heads or tails on a coin, it's safe to say that you're pretty legit on whatever you're doing. .646 on base percentage, 1.212 slugging percentage, along with 34 home runs and 85 RBIs. Like, it's insane. I know sometimes with dynasties, we were talking about the Golden State dynasty earlier, how sometimes they can get a little taxing. You're like, all right, we've seen these guys before. Let's get somebody new. Dynasties are really great for sports, especially for a sport like softball, in my opinion, because ultimately when you are a dynasty, you are doing things in your respective sport that a lot of the times hasn't been done before. And you've either found something that you're really good at compared to your competition or just something that we've never even seen. And I think this Oklahoma softball team did that in spades. I mean, they were just throughout the entire year. Kevin, you mentioned the stats that you mentioned last time. I'm still rocked from of how dominant this team was from start to finish. And congrats to them. They are College World Series champions. And yeah, I agree. They did a tremendous job in elevating their sport.
Yeah, I think we talked so much, especially in the last couple of years, and rightfully so, about promoting women's sports, right? And it's not something that we have done a good job of over the last 20, 30 years. And I think, for the first time in a long time, and we all watched the women's college world series. We watched the regionals, super regionals. I have since I was a kid, along with baseball as well. To me, it felt like this is the first time that it was getting national recognition on a consistent basis during that time. And I think Oklahoma played a big part in that. It felt like every time you got on Twitter, you got on TV or the ESPN app, they were somewhere to be seen front and center. And along with other teams too, right? UCLA, Texas had a tremendous run. A team that nobody really anticipated on being there. They somehow found their way facing Goliath and their rival in Oklahoma. But I think it's time that we look at Oklahoma the same way we look at Alabama in football. Just they are the champ until proven otherwise. This is something that you'll never see again. You go back to that game one against Texas in the final series. That game was essentially over by like the third inning, right?
And, no, it was done by the first inning. I mean, Oklahoma scored like 6 runs in the first inning, and I was like, yeah, this is over.
Right. And
there's no run rule.
Right. And even, from Texas standpoint, you could go in there and play an absolute perfect game. Clean innings, no errors. You hit your spots as a pitcher. You don't give them any extra outs. You're still facing an uphill battle. And unfortunately for Texas, they, routinely could not make the routine play and things like that. And when you give a team like Oklahoma more than the 3 outs that they're already allotted, you are starting from a prime disadvantage. And, it's a tough task for anybody, but you give a team like that extra outs, they are going to make you pay for it. And, I think Oklahoma was the betting favorite going in. They should have been. But for me, when they dismantled UCLA the way that they did, UCLA has been a powerhouse in their own right. It was kind of all bets were off from that point. But the bigger point is with Oklahoma, like I said, they helped put college softball on the map, and it's a sport that deserves a lot of attention. It's so much different from baseball. We don't always get a chance to see softball on a national stage and get national recognition. You grow up with it. You have a sibling or a cousin that plays softball. We've all been to softball tournaments. We know how intense they can become quickly. And we don't always get to see that on a national scale. So good for Oklahoma, good for the sport. And it's a great tournament. It was really fun to be a part of and watch.
Yeah, so I did find that stat, and after looking into it more, it's a stat that we need to familiarize ourselves with in baseball. Our baseball insider, Tyler Luker, probably knows this stat and probably knows the exact definition of it just because of the nerd that he is and how much he loves the game of baseball and the statistics behind it. But the stat is WRC plus. It is weighted runs created plus. It is, I'll give you the exact definition. It's a hitting stat that every baseball fan should use for analyzing hitting ability. It is all encompassing of hitting performance. It puts a weighted value on each outcome for a hitter as it relates to run creation. And it takes in external factors as far as a ballpark or an era. It's an adjusted stat. Well, I found this stat because it was too insane not to mention, and just mention it I needed to get the number. So this was put on screen. That's why I saw it. According to 643's charts, I'm reading this straight from ESPN Stats and Info on Twitter. Jocelyn Allo's weighted runs created plus this past season, is 303, which is 203% better than the Division I average of 100. The highest WRC plus in MLB history is 244, which was Barry Bonds in his 2002 season. So that means Allo was 59% better at the plate than the best season in MLB history.
Give her flowers, man.
I mean, what do you even say?
What more can you? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just trying to rack my brain around that is wow. That's insane.
They say one of the hardest things to do is to hit a round ball with a round bat, and she did it so well that she probably is the best at it on this planet as we speak. I mean, that's a legitimate argument that we could make. But yeah, I just real quickly, not really real quickly because that took a while, but hey, Oklahoma deserved it. Jocelyn Alo deserved it. They did incredible. It was a wonderful. I know Texas essentially got swept, but it was fun. It was great to watch. Just watch this team just really just be successful. And then what I know the Red River rivalry is a big thing. Texas OU is a big thing, but to see all the girls getting together, mixed up, and just kind of doing a prayer, and then just talking and hanging out after the game was just a really a feel good moment. And it's just good things you like to see in sports in general. So it was fun. This show we really predicate on focusing on sports that female athletes take part in. We try to do our best not to just do the mainstream of men's sports and stuff, but that's not even what this is about. This is just truly a dominant, I think Layton, you said it, but a truly just a dominant franchise that we may never see again, or we might just see year in, year out. But that's college softball. Let's take it to college baseball. College World Series is set. And I gotta admit to you boys, I'm a little scared. As y'all know, when the season started out, Texas was the number one team in baseball, and started off 10-0. And my argument, and what my argument will always be, is that the Big 12 is the best conference as far as I'll take it back. One of the better conferences as far as college baseball goes. So that is what I'm going to fall back on for Texas as far as they're losing and their struggles. But we have found ourselves back in this race after being out of it and counted out of it a couple of times as far as rankings go. But I saw a stat by 247 that said that Texas is the consensus to win it all. And I don't like how that sounds because that makes me scared. I don't like being predicted to win it all because that's what we do with the Cowboys. We don't do that with the Rangers, but that's what we do with the Cowboys. And, we do that with a few different teams, and Texas is notorious for it, especially in football. And can we not just take it a game at a time here, people? Come on. I mean, this is the College World Series. Anything can happen. The number one team in college baseball was knocked out by Notre Dame, to which Texas has to go play Notre Dame now in Omaha. So I'm a little afraid. I have faith. Ivan Melendez is a stud and should be the college baseball player of the year. I don't want to hear an argument about it. No ifs, ands, or buts. And to whatever baseball team in the MLB he does go to play for, I will be getting his jersey because he is a stud. And the Hispanic Titanic is something that Texas has needed all year to survive. And that team is just so good. I've talked about it before, so I'm not going to try to keep going on about it. But College World Series is set. 8 is left. We're in Omaha. What's y'all's opinions? Where do y'all see this going?
Well, Kevin, I will push back on your theory that the Big 12 is one of the did you say the best or one of the best college baseball conferences?
So I was gonna say the best, and then I thought of the SEC, and then I was like, okay. And I had a feeling just based off of your facial expressions that you had a few different conferences that you were throwing at me. So I just said one of the better ones.
They are. I would also say that they're probably heavily carried by Oklahoma and Texas. And if we're being honest,
Texas Tech most years. Texas Tech most years.
But if we're being honest, I would tell you that 6 of the 8 teams left are SEC teams.
Yeah.
We're just being very, very fair.
And that's why I was like, oh yeah, there's that SEC conference, that little guy over there. So can't forget about him.
No.
Just
Can't
only dominates every sport that there is to dominate.
Well, it just means more, It just means more. But no, on a serious note, I think Texas certainly has a great shot. I do want to give a shout out to A&M. I know Texas guy over there, but you look at A&M. This is a team that has not been great the last couple of years. They completely missed the SEC tournament last season. They make a coaching change. They let go of longtime coach Rob Childress. They bring in Jim Schlossnagle from TCU, obviously, completely turned the program around. To me, I'm a big. They hit the ball very well. They're a good offense. I don't know how great I feel about their pitching and how well it's going to hold up. To me, the sneaky team in this whole thing is Arkansas. Arkansas has really played well, and they've kind of gone under the radar. They kind of started clicking right at the right time during the regionals and really turned it on in the super regionals there.
I mean, what they did to Oklahoma State was insane.
Yeah. And there's two things I do want to touch on. They're not necessarily College World Series related to these teams, but Oregon State and Tennessee. Oregon State was a team that I thought had a legitimate. Those are two of my locks coming out of the Super Regionals. They both didn't make it, and I want to take a quick detour to Tennessee. I have never had a problem with how Tennessee played this year. Not at any point. I think if you are going to be flamboyant, if you are going to point fingers and throw 108 miles an hour and hit tanks, you should be allowed to talk about it and make it be known. The problem becomes when you do that. You do put a target on your back, and when you lose, you will hear about it. So I never understood the critics that did not like this team. Now, do I necessarily agree with giving double birds to outfielders in the regionals after hitting the tank? Probably not. But if you're going to throw 108, you're going to hit tanks. Yeah, you have to be able to walk the walk, and you have to be able to talk the talk. And to Tennessee's credit, they got in there after they lost that super regional to Notre Dame, and their coach owned it. Right. They talked about that. Said, listen, this is our style of ball. We didn't get the job done, but we're not going to change who we are. And I think there's something to be said to that. But when you play that game and you walk that line, this is the risk that you're going to run. Because when you play that style of baseball, you are going to get critics. You're going to have people that don't like the way that you play and say you're disrespecting the game or not living up to the rules. And make of that what you will. But this is the risk that you're going to run. So I think I'm personally extremely excited for this College World Series. I think, we always get a couple of different teams that come in. We had Michigan in last year. We've had years where we had Virginia or Arizona State or an Eastern Carolina kind of come in, or a Coastal Carolina. We have legitimate Division I, Power 5 brands. And I think that's going to draw a lot of eyeballs to the sport that typically we wouldn't have it. I mean, you look at those 8 teams remaining, you would think that was a college football playoff at first glance when you look at that. A couple teams you could flip-flop on and disagree on, but you're going to have your Texas schools. You're going to have Mississippi. You're going to have an Auburn team. You're going to have West Coast coming with Stanford. You're going to have the Midwest with Notre Dame. You've got a lot of different regions mixed in and a lot of big brands. And I think that's going to bode well as we get ready for the College World Series.
So, Layton, I know you have a soft spot for baseball, not just College World Series, but also Major League Baseball. Kevin touched on it earlier with a player he's looking to watch. What was the nickname you said, Kevin? The nickname for the Texas player?
Oh, Hispanic Titanic.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, that's not my nickname. That's everyone in Texas baseball.
Right. Well, I was giving you credit that you said it, so that's why I was just Layton, in terms of teams in this College World Series, what player or what group of guys would you be particularly most interested in seeing how they play during this tournament?
I'm going to be honest. I think a team that we don't know a lot about, maybe on a national level, is Stanford. And like I said, I alluded to Arkansas. Obviously, Arkansas is peaking at the right time. Stanford's a team that not a lot of people really picked up on or really maybe paying attention to because they're out west. They're very, Stanford, obviously, they're playing in their regional against Texas State. Shout out Bobcats. Got a chance to watch some of that. But this generation doesn't. Stanford is historically a powerhouse when it comes to baseball. Them, along with Cal State Fullerton, UCLA, USC back in the day, huge baseball programs. They've kind of since subsided. Stanford's a team that's really interesting to me because they don't necessarily get a lot of attention, but they play. They've had big hits. The thing is that they have, in all the games that I watched them, they're very clutch. They were at one point they were down multiple runs late against Texas State. Well, within a very quick, couple at bats, they're up 5 runs. So they have that quick strike ability to get back into the game, and they pitch really, really well. They get outs when they need them. They've got a lot of different, mixing and matching that they can do with their staff, and that's something to pay attention to. Auburn's a team that has kind of snuck in there. Like I said, I really anticipated Oregon State getting in over Auburn. So Auburn's a team that maybe not a lot of people anticipated, but they're really intriguing because they're kind of new to the whole dance. And I think Notre Dame, listen, you have to give Notre Dame some credit, right? They took down the #1 team in the country. They took care of them on a Friday. They kind of got roughed up on Saturday and came right back and shut Tennessee down basically in the Knoxville Super Regional. That's hard when you go into the Lions Den and take care of business there. And again, it's not a traditional baseball power. But you got to give Notre Dame their credit. So there's a lot of different teams. For as many, like I just mentioned, big brands that we have teams that we don't really typically see at this point in the season. So I think it's a really intriguing group of teams, and I think we're primed to see some really good baseball.
Yeah, I kind of want to ask you, Layton. Obviously, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but Notre Dame taking care of Tennessee in spectacular fashion, as you said, going in the Lions Den. But what do we know about Notre Dame? And I'm not trying to sound – I'm going to say completely objective, but, who is the better team in this series between Notre Dame and Texas? I mean, do we really know anything about Texas? They haven't really been consistent.
I feel like this is coming from a personal standpoint. I'm just kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
I'm trying to be objective.
Okay, I'm kidding. Listen, I think Texas was preseason ranked #1 for a reason. Clearly, they should have been. Now, they had some really, really ugly losses early in the season. They had that abysmal series against LSU, another team that is typically really, really good that did not have a great year. They're not going to go anywhere. But I think Notre Dame is kind of playing with house money right now, right? Again, nobody really, not necessarily a baseball power, not a team you typically expect to see in June in Omaha. And they're playing with house money. They just took down Tennessee. They don't really have anything to lose. Like you kind of talked about a second ago, there's pressure on Texas, right? Preseason ranked #1, had some struggles early in the year, really kind of clicked, but still haven't totally found that rhythm. There's pressure on Texas, and Notre Dame is kind of playing with house money. Nobody expected them to be here. They just took down Tennessee. Win, lose, or draw, they kind of come out ahead. So I think they're dangerous. I think there's teams that are new to this dance. At this point in the year, anybody can be a hero. So I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think experience gets overrated a lot in sports. I think sometimes it's something that we put too much stock in. So listen, it's anybody's tournament to win at this point with the Final 8. But Notre Dame's got house money, and Texas has the pressure on them because of their pedigree, what they've gone through this season. So for our Texas fans and Kevin, I think a healthy amount of nerves is appropriate, but again, there's a reason that Texas is the program they are, and Notre Dame maybe doesn't always get to this point.
Yeah, I get it. Real quick before we get out of this baseball segment as a whole, I know it's taking up quite a bit of time. Listeners, I lied. Said we weren't going to go an hour 45. We probably will. Might go over. I'm sorry. Not really. We're giving you great content. You can't complain. If you're listening to us while you work, then we're just helping your time fly by. So you're welcome, actually. Yeah, not sorry about it. Anyway, Cullen had the devious plan to throw this in the script. Layton Prater, for the listeners, if they don't know, Layton, give a quick shout out to your Twitter. I think you're a great Twitter follow.
I mean, listen, I probably tweet way too much. I probably spend too much time on the cesspool that is Twitter. But if you are so
Hey,
kind,
you're talking about the LinkedIn of sports journalism right there. What are you talking about?
more or less, but man, you just get on Twitter. Some days it's great, and some days you just really feel like there's no hope for humanity. But if you feel like following me on Twitter, I like to think that I'm too funny and clever for my own good. It is at Prater Layton, Praytor Layten. Very simple. First and then last, last and then first name. So you can give me a follow there if you would so choose.
Okay, and just so you know, I'm gonna bleep all of that out when I go to edit this, because we're not. I'm just messing with you.
You're wasting my time, then, man.
No, I'm just messing with you. But that leads me into this. Layton is a big sports fan, obviously, but a very big Dodgers fan. That makes 1 out of 2 people. I did not know any Dodgers fans before I came to Denton. Did not know that going to Denton would lead to me having 2 friends that are Dodgers fans, like diehard Los Angeles Dodgers fans. So Layton and Tyler, those are my 2 friends that are Dodgers fans. But Layton is also a bit of I'll just leave it. I'll just leave it to Cullen. Cullen, what was your question for this baseball segment?
I kind of want you to finish what you were saying there for a second.
Yeah, Kevin, go ahead, finish.
Well, I just want to know, Layton, I don't know who you think is the best team in baseball right now, but is it Nestor Cortez and Aaron Judge and those boys over there in New York that you love oh so much?
Here, do you want me to tee it up for what the article wrote? And then Layton, I'm just going to let you kind of dive in there.
Let's do it.
Okay. So this article basically said the Yankees are playing at a 119 win pace through 60 games. They currently own the Major League Baseball's best record by a total of 5 games over the New York Mets. The gap between the Yankees and the number 2 team is the same gap between the number 2 team and the number 8 team record-wise in baseball. So Layton, with that being said, and he was just kind of proposing, it's a very opinionated article, basically lining out, how successful the Yankees have been so far this season. Make your case. Who is the best team in Major League Baseball at this current moment?
It is the New York Yankees.
Oh,
I say with begrudgingly. Now, much like Kevin attempted to do with his beloved Longhorns, I'm going to try to be objective here. We're at the midpoint in June. We're about a month away from the All-Star break. There is a lot of season left. There's a lot left. I think when we think of the Yankees, we think of guys that hit the ball deep. We think of Stanton, Rizzo, Judge clearly in a contract here, Gleyber Torres when he's clicking. What we don't always think about is pitching, right? And we didn't really know what we were going to get out of this group in New York. We knew that they had Cole, but think about the last time we saw Garrett Cole. In last season, he got shelled in the wild card game against Boston. They've been really good. They have the best pitching staff in the sport right now, and that's with Aroldis Chapman, who has not been good this year. They've had a guy by the name of Clay Holmes, who they picked up at the deadline last year from, I believe it was either Pittsburgh or Cincinnati, who's throwing 103.5 mile an hour sinkers and closing games down left and right. They've got a guy in Nestor Cortez, who is just the funkiest, crafty left-hander you've ever seen in your life.
Dude's a stud.
With a sub-2 ERA. Garrett Cole currently holds the highest ERA in that rotation. It's at 3.3. As much as it pains me to say, and I don't despise the Yankees at all. Like, my dad or my grandfather does. Like, they hate the Yankees, but let's get real. If you're in our age bracket, you've never really seen the Yankees be the Yankees of old from the 90s or anything like that. So we didn't grow up like that. But listen, you got to give credit where it's due. What worries me is there's guys on that team who are prone to injury. You never want to see a player get hurt. Judge currently on pace to be MVP in a contract year. That is huge. Injury bug does bite, though, between him, Stanton, how much longer are we going to see? Is there a chance that we see regression from a guy like Cortez or Jamison Tyone or even Luis Severino, who, again, a guy who's had big injuries? They're going to go as far as their starting pitching will take them. But they're going to need that to stay consistent. They're going to need the guys offensively to stay healthy. Our beloved friend Joey Gallo, just it hasn't gone maybe the way that they would have liked for him. I don't know if it was ever really a true fit in New York. But outside of Judge, Matt Carpenter has been a nice shot in the arm off the bench. Rizzo has been solid. Haven't really gotten a lot out of Josh Donaldson. I don't really know what you're going to get out of him at age 36. But they're kind of, again, we talked about the Warriors at the top of the show. They've got a guy in Judge or a guy in Curry who's kind of carrying them. But you're kind of getting a lot of different names kind of coming in and contributing. Again, you think of the Yankees, you think of stars. You're really getting a lot of production from guys that you wouldn't think that you would get it from. And that matters. Would I like to sit here and tell you that the Dodgers are the number one team in the sport? I would love to. They're 5-9 in their last, I think, X amount of games. They're just not playing very well. But what does CBS Sports know? I mean, come on. What is CBS? Who is still going to CBS Sports?
I've got the name of the guy who wrote the article if you want.
Nah, it's okay.
We can reach out to him. No big deal.
Yeah,
We can get him on the show, have a debate.
All
right.
I'm okay.
Kevin, I'm going to ask a question. I'll swing over to you. So for full disclosure, we came out on a podcast before the Major League Baseball season, and I came out with kind of like a top 5 power ranking of who I think would be there towards the end. And full disclosure, I did pick the Dodgers to be the top one. I thought they were going to win the World Series. I thought they were just loaded top to bottom. I thought they had their pitching was more than adequate to get the job done. That so far, I mean, it's not like they've, not lived up to expectations because they're the 3rd best record in Major League Baseball, but they're not quite, I think, where people thought they would be. Could you kind of just give us your thoughts on the Dodgers and why, again, it's a long season. It's, as you mentioned, we're not even at the All-Star break yet. What the Dodgers kind of need to do in order to kind of really ramp things up and maybe challenge not only the Yankees, but I mean, the Mets, for the record, have a better record at the moment. So what do the Dodgers need to do to kind of shape into form?
They need pitching, right? And it was the one area that going into the season, I think, was an area of concern with this team. You had a Clayton Kershaw at age 34 coming in, has just not had a fully healthy season the last couple of years. You had Walker Buehler, who has thrown more innings than any pitcher in the sport recently in the last X amount of years. You had Julio Urias, who had his career high in innings last year. There's a lot of different kind of things. They brought in a guy like Andrew Heaney and Tyler Anderson to kind of fill out this rotation, give them some depth. They're still waiting on Dustin May to come back. They've gone through a lot of guys already. Walker Buehler this weekend, he's going to be shut down until about September with a strain in his elbow. Fortunately, no surgery. But they're kind of piecing together. Tony Gonsolin, a guy that pitched tonight against the Angels, leads Major League Baseball in ERA. It's sub 1.5. He leads Major League Baseball in nearly every statistical category when it comes to pitching. Tyler Anderson, another guy they got for about $3 or $4 million this offseason, has pitched to the tune of a sub 3 ERA. He's been fantastic. So they're going to look to make deals at the deadline. They typically do. I don't think you're going to see a swing for somebody like a Scherzer Turner package that you saw last July. You could look for them to make deals for a guy like Frankie Montas of the A's or Luis Castillo from the Reds. They're going to make deals, and they have so many reinforcements coming back. Blake Trinan has not pitched out of the bullpen this year. I mentioned they're going to get Dustin May back. They're going to get bullpen reinforcements, which is going to be really helpful. That's something they haven't necessarily always had the last couple of years. And outside of that, we talked so much at the beginning of the season. I'm sure this went into your decision to put them preseason number 1. How vaunted the lineup was going to be, right? It's not enough that you have Mookie Betts and Trey Turner. Let's go ahead and add Freddie Freeman in there as well to supplement the loss of Corey Seager. And Freeman and Trey Turner and Mookie have been great. You're not really getting a lot of production out of anybody else right now. Cody Bellinger has kind of been MIA the last couple of years, minus that little stretch in the playoffs. Justin Turner has not been great. Max Muncy has not been the same since he had his season cut short last year due to injury. You're just having a lot of guys that you typically rely on to be the middle of your order that are not producing right now. Gavin Lux has been solid thus far. So you're just not getting a lot of consistency. They've struggled to hit with runners in scoring position, and you're not going to win a lot of baseball games if you do that. Even tonight, they won 2-0. I think they've scored 2 runs in their last, maybe 25, 27 innings. They just have not hit well with runners in scoring position. And their depth has just been tested in the pitching department. So those trends kind of come around. You don't typically, this is just a slump. Again, it's mid-June. But the long-term problem is what are they going to do with pitching? And I would expect them to make an acquisition.
Kevin, you want to jump in here?
I mean, the only thing I'll say is don't tell Tyler that oh my goodness.
What he said about Cody Bellinger?
Yeah, don't tell Tyler about old Cody Bellinger not having a good season. Okay, that's his. Other than Kershaw, that's his guy. So
I like Belly. Listen, but I think you have to be realistic about where we've kind of been with him since his MVP season. I understand 2020 was totally cut short, and last year he was hurt most of it. But we haven't seen. Outside of his rookie year and his MVP year, he's been a pretty inconsistent player, whether it just be poor performance or injury. And it kind of goes back to what are your expectations of this guy? I think we have enough data that tells us this guy could be a productive player, but maybe the MVP talent is there, but the consistency is not.
So what you're saying is that the Rangers need to go after him ASAP.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That is not what I'm saying.
Well, you said inconsistent, and did I hear injury prone?
Listen, you can have him if you give us lighter. How about that?
All right, but anyway.
Put an end to that conversation.
Yeah. Anyway, like any GM would do that. If the Rangers actually got rid of Leiter, I would pull a Cullen and just go to whatever franchise he went to and just start following them because what the hell would we be doing?
Whoa. I'm not going to
Cullen.
No, I'm not taking. I'm not taking that slander. I
didn't. That was no slander.
What you basically just call me a bandwagoner is what you just did.
No. I mean, if the listeners don't know, that's how you picked your Seattle teams. You liked Kevin Durant before he went and picked his NBA team. Right. And you were like, hey, wherever he goes, you said that Preacher.
The way you phrased it was just very out of context. And I was just like,
okay.
I'm sorry. Players.
I was not trying to pull any slander. I was just simply trying to say I might take a page from an old man's book and just simply relocate.
Yeah, that's a story for
Cullen. Cullen went from Go Hawks to Let's Ride in about one day.
No,
let's ride,
dude.
Let's ride.
Oh my
let's
god.
Ride.
That the amount of times I got sent that video, I couldn't look at my phone for a solid hour because I just
oh my gosh, what is up with all these NFL social medias? Anyway, some people are just not good at their job. And some people just, simply should not be behind a camera. But our last topic in baseball is somebody who was, I think objectively not very great at their job, but also won't be in front of a camera anytime soon either. As the listeners may know, Joe Madden, the former manager of the Los Angeles Angels, was let go amid how many games was it?
14.
14 game losing streak. And this, I guess, didn't come as too much of a surprise. I don't see how you could be losing 14 games in a row, given that you have two players that could literally be potential MVPs in Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout when given the right season, and having a lot of other great pieces. But it came out a little bit after that Joe Madden had decided that he was going to get a haircut to try to pump up his team amid this losing streak. And the haircut that he decided to go for was a mohawk. But he was never able to debut this haircut to the team because he was fired. I have sympathy. I feel bad for him. Damn, that sucks.
I mean, listen, I think Joe's a good manager. I think, you lose 14 games. What do you expect? I know he said he was surprised to be let go. But we talked about this pre-show. Just kind of feels like the Angels are a cursed franchise a little bit. Just can never quite seem to get anything to go their way. And you think about prior to this 14-game stretch, they were, considered a top 5 team in the sport. They're finally had gotten some pitching. Trout was hitting well. They were getting great production from guys like Taylor Ward, and Ohtani was kind of starting to get out of his slow start to the season. And all of a sudden they spiral into a 14-game losing streak. So, yeah, I mean, will Joe find his way into baseball again, as a manager? It's possible, but I think he could have a really good career in TV. He's very personable, very charismatic, personality that really jumps out the screen. So
he can take that mohawk with him.
Yeah, listen, ESPN would love to have that. You can put, if they still cover baseball, I'm not sure. But he can find a way to be on there. So, yeah, listen, I think the Angels, so much is made of it that they've wasted Trout's career, and they're in danger of doing the same with Ohtani. Listen, at some point you have to do right by these guys, and Trout in particular. We saw the trade that the Lions did with Matt Stafford after 12 years of purgatory in Detroit, right, and moving him to LA. Is it possible we see something like that with Trout in the next year or so, and give him a second chance at life? Maybe, but that's a long way before we get to that point. So,
yeah, no, I don't want this to be the last thing of Joe Madden, because Joe Madden's been a really successful manager for a while now. And yes, he wasn't in the greatest stretch of his career by any means, but I just don't want him to go out with not even his full head of hair, just being like, I'm out of baseball now. I just hopefully he can get it. Like, I'm with you, Layton. I don't know if there's necessarily a direct route that he gets back into baseball. I think he would work in the television world with whatever he wants to do. It seems very knowledgeable of the game, great personality and all that. It's Kevin Neal. I mean, it just sucks. Like, it's just he really thought he was going to do something, and he gets fired. And yeah, it's just I hope for Joe's sake that he gets another shot in the majors if he wants it. So
he could do it if he wanted. But that is going to do for our large baseball segment. Like I said before, I don't feel bad that we're giving y'all a lot of content. Okay, y'all starve for it. If you're tuning into it, then you know what our voice sounds like. You know that you love to hear a bunch of idiots talk about sports that we don't know. Yeah, we do know stuff about, but it is what it is. But real quick before we get out of here on the 2-hour first hour segment, let's talk about some golf. Rory McIlroy won the Canadian Open this past weekend, and has been saying some things about this LIV league that is going on. in Saudi Arabia for golf. For those who don't know, LIV is a Saudi Arabian government-controlled golf league that basically has a infinite amount of resources as far as money goes to pay players in guaranteed money, which golf has in the past and forever not been that has not been the standard. It has always been win and then get your money. But they do not have any regulations as far as money goes, and they can just spend it. And they have been getting players like Phil Mickelson. They have been getting players like, I believe, Bryson DeChambeau has also signed on with them. And I think Justin Thomas as well, or
Dustin Johnson.
I don't know how I just got those names mixed up. But yeah, a lot of big names going over there. But Rory McIlroy, which was supposed to be one of the headliners, one of the guys that they really wanted really bad, reportedly was offered $400 million to come play for LIV, did not. And he spoke on it, saying things like, he said his dad taught him at a young age that every person makes their bed and they have to lie in it. And he said that is how he feels for the people who have gone to play for the LIV League, saying that he doesn't really have any sympathy for them. They have made their bed, and now it is their turn, and it is their choice to lie in it. So a lot of people have had a lot of different opinions in this, especially with Phil Mickelson being one of the headlining names for this after all the controversy that he has been in. But it's interesting. The first LIV tournament was this past weekend, and some people were saying it wasn't as interesting, but I just kind of wanted to get y'all's opinion as an overall. What does the future of golf look like if the PGA decides they don't want to have anything to do with LIV golfers?
I mean, I don't know how drastically different it looks. I think, people will still tune in to see the majors, right? And I think the biggest thing that the LIV Tour has working against it is not even necessarily where the money's coming from or how it's being funded or anything like that. I think it's that it's hard to convince people that this matters because that everybody's getting paid, right? What Phil Mickelson's being paid. What Dustin Johnson's making. What Bryson DeChambeau is being paid. They're all getting paid. So in reality, it's hard to convince an audience that this tournament matters because what are they really playing for, right? They're not playing for a green jacket at Augusta or a PGA Championship or the U.S. Open or the British Open or anything like that. They've already been paid. So the biggest thing is, why should somebody care? Because it can look cool. It can be this new shiny thing, and they've got cool graphics, and they have a shotgun start to start their round, and they only play 54 holes, and that's all fine and good. But it's really hard to uproot that history and that pedigree that the PGA has when it comes to the majors. If you want to watch a PGA event, maybe the RBC, the Byron Nelson right here in Dallas, that's all fine and good. But the biggest thing is with the LIV Tour, we have yet to find a way, and we're only one tournament in, one stop into this. So I understand that, but how, where is the motivation to come in to kind of watch this? Because they're not really necessarily playing for anything. These guys are all being paid up front. And on top of that, you have a lot of people that feel gross about watching it because this is a Saudi-backed tour, because there's billions of dollars that go into it. And it's blood money in some people's eyes. I don't necessarily have a problem with these guys going there and taking that money and choosing to go play in a different tournament or a different tour. That doesn't bother me. I would just ask that you be honest when asked why you chose to go and play over there. Don't tell me it's because you want to grow the game of golf, or you didn't like the way that you felt like you were a pawn in the PGA. No, somebody offered you X amount of, a $100 million deal or a $200 million deal. just say that. Just say it was life-changing money. That's what I wanted to take and move on. So
Yeah, no, honesty is the best policy. These guys, I think Kevin, you mentioned this, they're in their late 40s, in Phil's case, early 50s. They're grown men. Like, they have families that they have to take care of. They have livelihoods that they have to keep up. And ultimately, if you decide to go down this route, some people will look at you a certain way. Some people won't care. You ultimately have the right to make that decision based on everything you've accomplished in your career. And I understand it from both sides, but yeah, like Layton was saying, don't try to make it out for something that it's not. Like, it's very clear that they came in and they offered you guys a lot more money that you were going to make in the PGA. And I like it from the aspect that it's going to force the PGA to react, because PGA has been kind of like the self-standard, like no one could touch them in terms of the sport of golf. And they haven't really had any competition from any other league. So the LIV poaching these guys, if I'm allowed to use that word, from the PGA and bringing them in to play, all over the world and stuff. It's going to be very interesting to see how PGA handles it. Obviously, like you mentioned, we're only one tournament in, but just don't turn it for what it is. It's a very new thing that we're all trying to get used to, but yeah, I'm going to be very interested to see kind of how the PGA plays it. So far, nothing too serious coming from their end, but this could definitely snowball, depending on how successful and obviously how legitimate the money and the paydays become for these golfers.
Yeah, of course. Well, that is going to do it for hour one of the Fools on Stools podcast, joined by our special guest, Layton Prater. But it is 2 a.m, and some of us have work early in the morning. So Layton's going to not be with us for hour 2, more like hour 3. I mean, might as well just make this a late night radio show at this point. But we do appreciate you for coming on and filling in for Anthony. And we had a blast, and can't wait to get more Cowboys insider and record-breaking contracts that no one else has gotten the information from. But in all seriousness, thank you for coming on and giving us your time. We know it was late, and we hope you had fun.
Boys, I appreciate you having me. Like I said, long time coming. I will do my best to give you tidbits here and there on what goes on at the Star, but can't get ahead of myself there. But guys, keep kicking ass. You guys are doing a great job with this show. It's been cool to kind of see it grow and get to know you guys, and finally happy I was able to get on here after about 6 months of trying to make this work. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. No. Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
No, you're good. Go ahead, Cullen.
No, I was just gonna say, great meeting you, Layton. Really insightful. Best of luck with not only what you're doing now, but your future. We'd love to have you on whenever our schedules co-align and everything. And just let us know whenever you find out where the bathroom is in the Star. We'll know you.
Yeah, I will let you know. At this point, I'm pretty much just been holding it for about 6 hours a day until I get home. So eventually I will ask or run into it. So I found out where the break room was today, so I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer to find the men's restroom, but we'll see.
There you go.
That's good. Again, that's Layton joining us. Layton from the LP podcast. A great follow on Twitter. I believe you said it was Prater Layton, and writer for the Cowboys. So if y'all want to know what's going on, get some future story information, go check his stuff out. Layton, thank you for joining us, and as always, we'll see y'all in hour 2. But for now, grab a stool and be a fool. Peace.